The cafeteria was buzzing with noise that afternoon, trays clattering, voices echoing, and laughter filling the air. But in one corner, all the noise seemed to fade for a girl who sat alone. Her name was Elena, the new girl in school. She held her tray close, staring at the untouched food, her shoulders hunched as if she wished she could disappear into the walls. Everyone knew what it felt like to be new, but not everyone knew the cruelty of being the target. That day, Elena would learn the sting of mockery, and the strength hidden inside her. 3 boys, the kind who always found trouble amusing, spotted her from across the room. They whispered to one another, grins spreading across their faces. "Look at her, sitting like she's lost," one snickered. Another added, "She probably doesn't even know how to talk to people." Then, without hesitation, they walked over. The cafeteria seemed to quiet just enough for their voices to be heard. "Hey new girl," one said loudly, "do you even know how to eat? Or are you gonna cry into your food?" Their laughter rang out, cruel and sharp. Elena's hands trembled around her fork. She wanted to shout, to defend herself, but the words lodged in her throat. Around her, students turned to watch. Some smirked, others looked away, but no one spoke up. Her face burned, and she thought, why did I even come here? Why did I think this would be different? The boys laughed louder, feeding off each other, but then, something shifted. A voice cut through the noise, firm and steady, "That's enough." Everyone turned to see where it came from. It was Daniel, the quiet kid who usually sat with his books in the corner. He wasn't the type to raise his voice, let alone confront anyone. Yet here he was, walking toward them, his eyes fixed on the bullies. The boys sneered. "And what are you gonna do about it, bookworm?" one challenged. Daniel didn't flinch. "I'm going to sit with her," he said calmly, pulling out a chair beside Elena. The cafeteria fell silent. Elena's heart raced, no one had ever stood up for her like that. But the boys weren't done. "You're really gonna waste your time with her," another jeered. "She doesn't even belong here." Daniel looked at Elena, then back at the boys. His voice was quiet, but it carried weight. "Everyone belongs here. Including her. Maybe the real question is, why do you think making someone else feel small makes you look big?" For a moment, the cafeteria froze. The boys faltered, their smirks fading under the stares of their classmates. It wasn't just Daniel's words, it was the truth behind them. People started whispering, not about Elena, but about the bullies. The laughter that had fueled them was gone. Elena felt a tear slip down her cheek, but this time, it wasn't from shame, it was relief. Daniel gave her a small smile. "Mind if I sit here?" She shook her head, unable to speak, but grateful beyond words. That single act changed everything. By the end of the week, more students started SI. The cafeteria was a jungle that day. Tables filled with cliques, laughter bouncing off the walls, the smell of fries and pizza lingering in the air. But for Elena, it felt like walking into a battlefield with no armor. She was the new girl, fresh transfer, unfamiliar face, and an easy target. Her tray shook slightly in her hands as she scanned for a place to sit. Every table seemed full, every group too tight-knit to let her in. Finally, she sat alone in the farthest corner, lowering her head as though the room would forget she existed. But the cafeteria doesn't forget. Especially not when someone looks different, acts different, or doesn't blend in. And that's when they saw her, the 3 boys who fed on weakness. Jason, Mark, and Tyler. They weren't the smartest or the kindest, but they were loud, popular in the wrong ways, and always on the lookout for a new victim. Jason nudged Mark with his elbow and nodded toward Elena. "Check out the new girl. She looks like she's about to cry into her sandwich." Mark grinned. "Bet she's too scared to even talk to anyone." The boys strutted across the cafeteria like predators, their voices growing louder as they closed in on Elena's table. Jason smirked and said, "Hey new girl, cafeteria's for eating, not sulking. What's the matter, don't know how to make friends?" The laughter that followed was sharp, cruel, and intentional. Students turned their heads. Some chuckled, others just stared, but no one intervened. Elena froze. Her face burned red. She wanted to vanish, to melt into the floor. She tried to speak, but her voice caught in her throat. Not again, she thought. She had changed schools to escape this very thing, the whispers, the mockery, the loneliness. Her hands trembled, and she gripped her fork tighter, willing herself not to cry. The boys fed off the silence. Tyler leaned in and sneered, "What, cat got your tongue? Or are you too good to talk to us?" They laughed louder. The noise in the cafeteria dimmed as students waited to see what would happen. And then, one voice shattered the moment. "Calm, steady, but powerful, that's enough." Every head turned. It was Daniel. The quiet boy with glasses who always ate by himself, usually with a book in hand. No one expected him to speak up, he never did. But now, his chair scraped against the floor as he stood and walked toward Elena's table. His eyes locked on the bullies. Jason scoffed. "What's this? A knight in shining armor?" Mark snorted. "Come on, Daniel, sit back down before you embarrass yourself." But Daniel didn't back down. He pulled out the chair beside Elena and sat down. "She's not alone," he said firmly. "Not anymore." The cafeteria buzzed with whispers. No one had ever seen Daniel like this. Jason leaned across the table, smirking. "What, you think sitting next to her makes you some kind of hero?" Daniel's gaze was steady, his tone quiet but sharp enough to cut through their bravado. "No. But it makes me human. Which is more than I can."